The colony on the mountain world was small but strong. The settlers had carved homes from stone and metal, building a life under the shadow of high cliffs. They farmed, they traded, and they survived with steady effort. Yet deep inside the mountains, another life stirred. Dragons lived there, ancient creatures of scale and fire, feared and respected by the people. One spring morning, a group of hunters returned with strange news. They had found a nest of dragon eggs hidden in a cave by the hot springs. When the eggs cracked, many small hatchlings came out, bright and strong. The hunters kept their distance, knowing the mothers would soon return. But among the nestlings was one that did not look like the rest. It was smaller, weaker, and its scales were pale white like frost. Its eyes were a deep red, strange and unsettling to those who saw it. The word spread quickly. The people whispered that the albino hatchling was cursed. Even the dragon seemed to believe it. While the others stayed close together, this pale one was pushed away, hissed at, and struck with small claws by its siblings. Alone, it stumbled across the stones, crying out in thin squeaks. The larger hatchlings ignored it. The mothers turned their gaze from it. Children from the colony soon made a game of watching the strange creature. They climbed the rocks near the cave and shouted cruel names at it. Some tossed pebbles, laughing when the small dragon flinched and tried to hide. The elders did not stop them, for they too thought the hatchling was bad luck. To them, dragons were powerful beings of balance, and anything that stood apart from their kind was a danger. But one child did not join in the laughter. Her name was Mira. She was a small girl with brown hair tied in two simple braids. She lived with her parents near the edge of the fields. Mira was quiet most of the time, yet her eyes noticed things that others ignored. When she saw the pale dragon stumble and curl into a ball, her heart hurt. She did not laugh. She did not throw stones. She only watched. At night, Mira thought about the hatchling. She wondered if it felt pain the same way she did when other children pushed her aside during games. She remembered times when she sat alone wishing someone would speak kindly to her. Perhaps the dragon felt the same. Her thoughts grew stronger each day until she could no longer keep away. One afternoon, when the other children were busy, Mira walked toward the mountain path. She moved quietly, carrying a small cloth bag. Inside, she had placed a few pieces of bread and dried fruit she had saved from her meal. Her parents had told her not to go near the dragons, but she could not ignore the pull in her heart. The path wound upward, the air cool and sharp. She reached the rocky ledge where the hatchlings lived. Most of them were gone, likely following their mothers into the deeper caves. Only the pale hatchling remained, crouched alone on the stone. Its body was thin and its head lowered as if too heavy to hold. Mira stepped closer. The dragon lifted its eyes, and for a moment it looked ready to hiss. Its red gaze glowed faintly, but there was no strength in it. Mira knelt, slowly placing the bread on the ground. The hatchling sniffed the air, then took a small step forward. Its claws scraped the stone as it moved closer to the food. Mira did not move, only waited. Finally, the hatchling bit into the bread with quick, sharp teeth. It ate hungrily, finishing the food in moments. Mira smiled. She reached into her bag and placed a piece of fruit before it. Again the dragon ate, this time looking up at her between bites. For the first time, the pale dragon was not rejected. For the first time, it felt the touch of kindness, Mira whispered softly, words the creature could not understand but could feel. Her voice was gentle and her eyes were calm. The hatchling let out a small sound, almost like a purr. From that day, Mira began to visit often. She brought food when she could, hiding her trips from her parents and the elders. The hatchling started to recognize her. It no longer hissed when she approached. It would even take slow steps toward her, its small wings twitching as if happy. The other children noticed her absence. When they saw her near the dragon's cave, they laughed at her. They shouted that she was foolish and that the pale hatchling would bring her bad fortune. Mira did not listen. She turned her back on their words, caring only for the creature that needed her. Seasons turned, and though the hatchling remained smaller than the others, it grew stronger under Mira's care. Its pale scales shone faintly in the sun, and its eyes held a spark of life no one else could see. While the world called it cursed, Mira called it friend, and though neither knew it yet, their meeting would shape the fate of the colony and beyond. Mira's secret visits to the pale hatchling soon became the most important part of her days. She would wake before the sun rose, slip food into her small cloth bag, and make her way up the rocky path while the rest of the village was still busy with chores. The air on the mountain was always cool, and her steps echoed softly on the stone. Every time she reached the ledge, the hatchling would be waiting. At first it kept its distance, but slowly it began to trust her. It would stretch its neck forward and take food from her hand. Its red eyes, once filled with fear, started to show a quiet spark when it saw her. It even let out short sounds, soft growls and squeaks, almost like it was trying to speak. Mira did not know what the sounds meant, but she felt the creature was happy. Back in the village, things were different. The other children noticed that Mira did not join their games anymore. When she walked past, they whispered and laughed, calling her strange. Some of them had followed her once and seen her feeding the dragon. Word spread quickly. Soon the elders also heard. One evening, Mira's father sat her down. His hands were rough from farming and his face was lined with worry. "Mira," he said, "you must stop going near that creature. The pale one is not like the others. It will bring you harm." Her mother nodded, her eyes serious. "Dragons are not pets. They are dangerous. The one you visit is weak and unwanted. Even its own kind pushes it away. Please listen to us." Mira lowered her head but stayed silent. She loved her parents, yet she could not accept their words. In her heart, she knew the hatchling was not a curse. It was lonely, just like she had been many times. She could not turn her back on it. The next day, Mira returned to the mountains. She sat beside the hatchling, feeding it and speaking softly. "They don't understand you," she whispered. "But I do. You are not bad. You are special." The dragon tilted its head as if listening. Its pale wings unfolded slightly, trembling in the breeze. The bond between them grew stronger. The hatchling began to follow her when she left, walking a few steps behind until she reached the edge of the village. It never dared to go closer, for it sensed the anger of the people. Still, it always watched her until she disappeared from sight. The children of the colony started to mock her openly. When Mira carried water from the well, they pointed at her and made hissing noises, pretending to be the dragon. When she passed by the fields, they shouted, "Dragon's girl," and laughed loudly. Mira kept her head high and ignored them, but inside her heart ached. One afternoon, the teasing went too far. A group of boys followed her up the mountain path. They found the hatchling resting on a rock. With cruel smiles, they picked up stones and began to throw them. The small dragon cried out in pain, trying to hide its head beneath its wings. Mira ran forward, her arms spread wide. "Stop," she shouted, her voice shaking. "Leave it alone," the boys laughed louder. "It is a curse," one said. "We will drive it away." Another raised his arm to throw again. Mira stood firmly in front of the hatchling, blocking their aim. Her eyes burned with anger. "If you throw, you will hit me," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried strength the boys did not expect. For a moment they hesitated. Then one dropped his stone and muttered, "You are strange. Mira, you will regret this." One by one, the others followed, and soon they walked back down the path, leaving her alone. When the sound of their steps faded, Mira turned to the dragon. Its red eyes looked at her with something new, something deeper. Slowly, it touched its nose against her hand. Mira smiled and whispered, "I will protect you, always." From that day, Mira became known not just as a quiet girl, but as the child who stood against the crowd. The villagers shook their heads, saying she was foolish, but deep inside, some began to wonder if her courage meant more than they thought. The elders warned her again and again, yet she kept visiting the pale dragon. At night, Mira sometimes dreamed of the hatchling. In her dreams, it was no longer small and weak. It was large and strong, its pale wings covering the sky, its roar echoing like thunder. She would wake with her heart racing, feeling both fear and hope. Perhaps she thought the hatchling was meant for something greater. The dragon, too, was changing. It grew faster than the others had expected. Though still smaller than its siblings, its scales began to shine faintly in the light, almost as if they held a secret glow. It no longer curled into a ball when frightened. Instead, it lifted its head proudly when Mira stood beside it. The bond between human and dragon was now unbreakable. Neither the whispers of the village nor the warnings of the elders could break Mira's resolve. She had made her choice. She would not abandon her friend no matter what others thought, and so, while the rest of the world turned its back on the pale hatchling, Mira stepped forward with defiance, holding to a truth that only she could see. The days on the mountain passed slowly, but the bond between Mira and the pale hatchling grew stronger. Each morning, Mira carried food and water up the rocky path, and each morning, the dragon greeted her with soft cries. Its thin body began to fill with strength, and its wings stretched wider each day. Still, the people of the colony did not see change. To them, it was the same weak, cursed creature that should have been left alone. One late afternoon, a group of children gathered near the path. They had grown angry that Mira continued to defy them. They whispered among themselves, their eyes watching her every step. When Mira walked toward the dragon's cave, they followed in silence, their feet crunching on gravel. The hatchling was resting when Mira arrived. She knelt beside it and placed bread on the stone. The pale creature ate happily, making small sounds that almost seemed playful. Mira laughed softly, her voice gentle in the cool air. But the moment was broken when the children appeared. "There she is," one shouted. "The dragon's girl." Another child threw a small rock at the ground near Mira's feet. "Show us your cursed friend," he sneered. "Why waste food on it?" The hatchling lowered its head, hissing weakly. Mira turned and faced them, her hands shaking. "Go away," she said firmly. "It has done nothing to you." But the children only laughed louder. "It is weak," one of them said. "It should not live." They stepped closer, their shadows falling across the stone. Mira's heart pounded. She could feel the hatchling trembling beside her. She knew that if she turned away, they would hurt it again. For a moment, she did not know what to do. Then, as if guided by something stronger than fear, she placed her hands gently on the dragon's snout. The hatchling froze. Its red eyes widened as it stared at her. Mira closed her eyes and pressed her lips softly to its cold scales. It was a small kiss, quick and simple, but it carried a power that no one could explain. The air grew still. The children who had been laughing suddenly went quiet. The hatchling let out a long, trembling sound, not of fear but of wonder. Its body stopped shaking. Its wings unfolded slightly, stretching as if discovering new strength. Mira pulled back, her cheeks warm. She whispered, "You are not cursed. You are my friend." The dragon's eyes glimmered faintly. It lifted its head higher than it ever had before. A faint hum seemed to move through the air, so light that Mira thought she imagined it. Yet the children standing nearby felt it too. Some stepped backward, their smiles gone. One of the boys spoke, his voice uneasy. "What did you do?" Mira stood tall, her hand still resting on the dragon's snout. "I showed kindness," she answered. Her voice no longer shook. "Something none of you would do," the children muttered among themselves. Some turned and left, whispering that Mira was strange. Others stared a little longer, then followed, leaving the ledge empty except for Mira and the hatchling. When they were alone again, the dragon moved closer to her. Its nose touched her shoulder, a gesture it had never made before. Mira smiled, tears shining in her eyes. She felt certain now that her bond with the pale creature was not only friendship, but something deeper, something rare. That night, Mira dreamed again. In her dream, she stood on the mountain while the sky burned red. The pale dragon was no longer small. Its wings spread wide across the heavens, and its roar shook the ground. She reached out her hand, and it lowered its head to her, just as it had when she kissed it. She woke with her heart racing, the image fixed in her mind. The next morning, when she returned to the cave, the hatchling seemed different. Its steps were firmer, its gaze sharper. It followed her to the edge of the path and looked down at the village below. Mira whispered, "One day they will see who you are." But not everyone ignored what had happened. The children who had witnessed the kiss told their parents. By evening, whispers filled the village. Some said Mira had cursed herself. Others said the pale dragon had bewitched her. The elders frowned and shook their heads. To them, Mira was only a foolish girl, but now her actions had drawn too much attention. Her parents scolded her, begging her to stop. Yet Mira could not stop. Something had changed inside her heart, and something had changed inside the dragon too. She felt it every time it looked at her, every time it touched her hand with its cold nose. The pale hatchling was no longer just surviving. It was awakening, and Mira knew that whatever path lay ahead, she and the dragon would walk it together. The days after the kiss seemed brighter for Mira, even though the whispers in the village grew louder. The other children still mocked her, and the elders still warned her parents. Yet Mira no longer felt afraid or ashamed. She had seen the change in the pale hatchling's eyes. She had felt the strength stirring inside it. That was enough to keep her walking up the mountain path every day. The dragon had changed as well. It was still smaller than its siblings, but it now stood taller, and its wings no longer drooped with weakness. When Mira approached, it no longer waited for her to place food on the ground. Instead, it came forward eagerly, touching its nose to her hand before eating. Sometimes it even followed her along the rocks, stretching its legs as if learning to walk beside her. One morning, Mira brought water in a small clay jug. She poured it into a hollow in the stone, and the dragon drank. As it lifted its head, drops sparkled on its pale scales, and for a moment the sunlight made it shine like silver. Mira smiled and whispered, "You are beautiful." The dragon gave a small growl, not of anger but of pleasure, and nudged her arm gently. But the bond did not go unnoticed. A hunter named Bren, who often patrolled near the caves, saw Mira feeding the dragon. He returned to the village and told the elders. That evening, the council met. The old men and women sat in a circle, their voices low but firm. They feared that Mira was drawing danger toward the colony. Her father was summoned. He stood in the council hall, his head lowered in shame. "She is only a child," he said. "She does not understand." An elder replied, "Then make her understand. The Pale One is not to be trusted. Its kind will turn on her, and when it does, it will bring ruin to us all." Her father returned home with heavy steps. He found Mira sitting quietly by the fire. "Mira," he said, his voice weary, "you must stop going to the dragon. The council will not allow this. If you keep visiting, they may punish you. Please listen to me." Mira looked at him with steady eyes. "I cannot leave it. It is my friend. If I do not care for it, no one will." Her father sighed deeply. "You are stubborn, child. But know this. I cannot protect you from the anger of the village forever." That night, Mira lay awake on her small bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought of the hatchling curled alone in the cave, waiting for her. She whispered softly into the darkness, "I will not leave you." The next day, she returned as always. When the dragon saw her, it let out a loud cry, flapping its wings. For the first time, it tried to leap into the air. It managed only a short jump before stumbling back down, but Mira clapped her hands and laughed with joy. The hatchling shook itself, embarrassed, then tried again. It was learning step by step to rise higher. Mira began to speak more often to the dragon, not because it understood her words, but because she felt it understood her heart. She told it about the fields, about the river, about the stars she saw at night. The dragon listened with calm eyes, sometimes tilting its head as though it wished it could answer. One evening, as the sun sank behind the peaks, Mira lingered longer than usual. The dragon curled beside her, resting its head near her lap. She placed her small hand on its scales, feeling the faint warmth beneath. A strange thought filled her mind, almost like a voice, though no sound was spoken. It was gentle and curious, like a question without words. Mira gasped softly. "Did you just speak to me?" she whispered. The dragon's eyes glowed faintly, and it gave a quiet hum. Mira's heart raced. Perhaps the bond between them was more than friendship. Perhaps it was something deeper, something that joined spirit to spirit. From that day, Mira began to feel the dragon's moods as if they were her own. When it was hungry, she felt a dull ache in her stomach. When it was frightened, her chest tightened. And when it was calm, she felt peace. She did not tell anyone, not even her parents. This was a secret she shared only with her pale companion. The villagers continued to mock her, but Mira no longer cared. When the other children shouted cruel words, she kept her head high. When the elders shook their heads, she walked past them without fear. For she knew the truth, this dragon was not cursed. It was chosen, and somehow she was chosen with it. As the stars lit the sky one clear night, Mira stood on the mountain ledge. The dragon sat beside her, its small wings folded, its eyes bright. She looked out over the valley and whispered, "One day they will see. One day they will understand." The dragon let out a soft cry, almost like an answer. Their bond was awake now, stronger than any warning or fear. The path ahead was uncertain, but Mira knew she would never walk it alone. The colony lived in uneasy peace on the mountain world. The people worked in their fields, traded with nearby villages, and tried to ignore the pale dragon that still lingered near the caves. They thought Mira's friendship with it was strange but harmless. Yet beyond the stars, danger was moving closer, and soon the colony would face a trial greater than any before. It began with lights in the sky. One night, while Mira stood on the ledge beside her dragon, she noticed streaks of fire cutting across the darkness. At first, she thought they were falling stars, but the lights grew larger and brighter. The dragon hissed softly, its body tense. Mira's heart raced. She felt through their bond a sense of warning, sharp and cold. The next morning, news spread quickly. Traders who had been traveling outside the colony returned in haste, speaking of strange ships that had landed in the lowlands. These were not human vessels, nor were they peaceful. They belonged to a hostile alien force known for seizing colonies and using their people for labor. Fear rippled through the village like a cold wind. The elders called a meeting. Men and women gathered in the square, their voices raised in worry. "We do not have enough weapons," one man said. "We have only hunting spears and a few rifles. How can we stand against them?" Another shouted, "We must leave. If we run into the mountains, maybe we can hide." But the elders shook their heads. "They will find us. They always find those who flee. We must defend our homes." Mira listened from the edge of the crowd. She felt the dragon's unease pressing against her heart. It stayed hidden near the cliffs, watching, its red eyes glowing faintly in the dusk. That evening, her parents spoke to her in hushed voices. "The invaders are coming," her mother said, her face pale. "We must be ready. Do not leave the house without us." Mira nodded, but inside she was troubled. She knew the colony was too weak to stand alone. The people were brave, but bravery could not stop an army with machines and weapons from the stars. She looked out the window toward the mountains and whispered silently to her dragon, "What can we do?" The dragon seemed to answer through their bond. Mira felt strength like a spark hidden deep within, waiting to rise. She did not fully understand, but she knew the pale hatchling carried something the others did not. The next day, the invaders arrived. Their ships landed in the fields, crushing crops beneath heavy metal. Tall figures in dark armor stepped out, their voices harsh and cold. They ordered the people to kneel. Those who resisted were struck down. Fear gripped the colony, and many dropped to the ground, trembling. Mira clutched her mother's hand, her heart pounding. She could feel the dragon nearby, hiding among the rocks. Through the bond, she sensed its rage. It wanted to leap forward to strike, but it held back, waiting for her. The leader of the invaders raised a weapon and shouted, "This world is ours now. You will serve, or you will be destroyed." The villagers cried out, but the elders stepped forward, their voices pleading for mercy. The leader only laughed. He ordered his soldiers to take control of the homes. That night, the colony lay in silence under the watch of alien guards. Families huddled together, afraid to speak. But Mira slipped away from her house and climbed the path toward the cliffs. The dragon was waiting, its body tense, its wings twitching. When it saw her, it lowered its head and let out a low growl. "I know," Mira whispered, placing her hand on its snout. "They are strong, but we cannot let them win. You and I must do something." The dragon's eyes glimmered in the moonlight. Mira felt its determination flow into her like fire. She realized then that the bond between them was not just friendship. It was power, a power that might save the colony if they dared to use it. The next morning, when the invaders marched through the square, Mira stood at the edge, watching. Her dragon was hidden beyond the cliffs, but its presence burned in her heart. She no longer felt only fear. She felt resolve. The colony was weak, but she and her pale dragon were not. Together, they would stand against the rising threat. Together, they would show that even the smallest human and the most hated hatchling could change the fate of many. The invaders had grown bold. Their machines moved through the valley, crushing fields and homes. Their soldiers patrolled the streets of the village, and fear hung in the air like a heavy fog. The people hid in their homes, whispering prayers and hoping the day would pass without disaster. But Mira knew the colony could not wait. The pale dragon and she had to act. Before sunrise, she climbed the mountain path, carrying a small satchel of food. Her heart raced with both fear and hope. The dragon waited, crouched on the rocks, its wings folded tightly but its eyes alert. It had grown stronger since the first kiss, its pale scales shining faintly in the early light. Mira knelt beside it, touching its snout gently. "We have to help them," she whispered. "They need us. You can do it. I believe in you." The dragon let out a soft growl, low and steady. Its chest rose and fell as if gathering strength. Mira could feel the bond between them intensify. It was no longer only friendship. The dragon's power surged through her heart, filling her with courage. Suddenly, a patrol of alien soldiers approached the mountain path. They did not see Mira at first. The dragon crouched lower, its eyes glimmering with a strange energy. Mira held her breath. The soldiers were only a few steps away when the hatchling leapt. Its wings spread wide, lifting it slightly into the air. The soldiers froze in surprise. A brilliant burst of light and heat erupted from the dragon's body. It was as if every scale held fire and strength, unseen by anyone before. The hatchling roared and the sound shook the ground beneath them. The soldiers stumbled back, their weapons failing as the power radiated from the dragon. Mira felt the heat and energy, yet it did not harm her. It flowed around her, connecting them. The hatchling's pale scales glowed brighter. Its wings stretched to full span, lifting it higher. It circled above the soldiers, leaving trails of shimmering light in the air. Mira clutched its claw lightly, guiding its focus. Together, they faced the invaders, and the power between them seemed unstoppable. The soldiers tried to fight, but their attacks could not reach the dragon. Each move of its wings sent gusts that knocked them off balance. The pale creature landed and struck with claws and tail, driving the invaders back toward their machines. Sparks flew and the soldiers shouted in panic. The villagers hiding in their homes heard the roar and trembled. Some peeked outside and their eyes widened in shock. The dragon that everyone had hated, the pale hatchling that no one trusted, was fighting for them. Mira's courage and care had awakened a power they had never seen. The alien leader raised his weapon, shouting commands, but the dragon moved faster. It leapt onto the machines, crushing them with strength far beyond its size. Mira guided it, whispering in the quiet language only they shared. The dragon responded, striking with precision and force. Within minutes, the patrol was driven back, stumbling toward their ships. The villagers began to come out slowly, their fear mixed with awe. They had always seen the hatchling as weak and cursed, but now they saw a protector. Mira's parents ran to her side, their eyes wide with disbelief and pride. "Mira," her father said, "it is incredible. You saved us all." Mira smiled, brushing a hand across the dragon's scales. "We saved them together," she said. The dragon let out a long, soft cry, its wings folding as it landed beside her. Its red eyes met hers, full of understanding and trust. The alien ships retreated, their soldiers scrambling to escape. The village was safe and the people cheered, finally recognizing the courage of both the little girl and the dragon. Mira looked around at the colony, at the faces filled with wonder and respect. Her heart swelled. The hatchling, once shunned and hated, now stood as a hero beside her. That night, Mira and the dragon sat together on the mountain ledge. The stars shone above and the air was calm. Mira placed her hand on the dragon's snout, feeling its warmth and strength. "You were amazing," she whispered. "I always knew you could do this." The dragon leaned against her, its eyes soft and trusting. Mira knew that this was only the beginning. The bond between them had grown stronger than fear, stronger than hate. Together, they could face anything, and the colony would never forget the day the pale hatchling showed its true power. For the first time, Mira realized that the dragon was not only her friend, but a protector of all who lived in the colony. The world had changed in a single day, and she knew that the bond they shared would guide them through whatever challenges came next. The morning after the battle, the village was quiet but full of life. The invaders had retreated, their ships gone from the fields, and the villagers began to emerge from their homes. Children ran to help their families rebuild. Elders discussed plans to repair the damage, and traders inspected the ruined crops. The air was filled with both relief and awe. Mira walked beside her dragon, the pale hatchling now much taller and stronger. Its wings spread wide as it moved, and its red eyes glimmered with calm intelligence. The villagers watched silently, some with hesitation, others with admiration. They remembered how they had mocked it and how they had shunned it. Yet now they could see it was a protector, a being of courage and strength. Her parents caught up to her, their faces filled with pride. "Mira," her mother said, "you were brave beyond anything we imagined. You saved the village, and this dragon saved you too." Her father nodded, adding, "We were wrong to doubt you both. You showed us that kindness and courage can change everything." Mira smiled, brushing a hand across the dragon's pale scales. The dragon leaned into her touch, and a soft hum rose from its throat. It was a sound of trust and friendship, a bond that had grown stronger through danger and fear. Mira knew that this connection was more than she had ever imagined. The villagers slowly approached. Some children who had once laughed at her stood at a distance, unsure how to act. One small boy stepped forward and handed her a piece of bread, saying quietly, I am sorry." "I did not understand." Mira nodded kindly. "It is all right." "We all learn," she said. The pale dragon lowered its head slightly, acknowledging the boy's gesture. The elders called a meeting in the square that afternoon. They spoke of the courage of Mira and the dragon, of how their actions had saved lives. The villagers listened carefully, their hearts filled with respect. For the first time, the colony truly understood that the pale hatchling once hated and shunned was a gift, a protector, and a friend. Mira and the dragon were invited to the square. She stood proudly, holding the dragon's claw lightly. "This dragon is my friend," she said. "It is not cursed. It is not weak. It is strong because of love, care, and trust. If we respect and protect those who are different, we can find great strength." The villagers listened in silence. When Mira finished speaking, the square erupted in applause. The dragon hissed softly, a sound of acknowledgement, and Mira laughed. She had never felt happier. The days that followed were filled with rebuilding. Mira helped her parents repair their home, while the dragon carried heavy stones and logs with ease. It worked alongside the villagers, showing that it was not only strong in battle but gentle in help. Slowly, the villagers learned to trust it, to respect it, and even to admire it. Mira often led the dragon to the ledge above the village. They would sit together looking out over the valley, talking in whispers that only they understood. Mira told the dragon about the stars, the wind, and the far mountains beyond. The dragon responded with soft sounds and gestures, always attentive, always loyal. One evening, Mira's mother joined them on the ledge. She looked at the dragon and then at Mira. "It is amazing," she said quietly. "I see now that it is not just a dragon, but a friend and protector. You have shown us the power of love and care." Mira smiled and held her mother's hand. "It was never just me," she said. "We did this together." Over time, the pale dragon became a symbol of hope and courage for the colony. Children who once feared it now played near it, learning to respect its strength. Adults who once doubted its power now consulted it in small ways, understanding that it had saved them all. And Mira, the little girl who had dared to show kindness, became a hero in her own right. At night, when the stars shone over the mountains, Mira and the dragon would sit together, their bond stronger than ever. The valley was peaceful and the colony was safe, but Mira knew that adventures awaited them beyond the mountains. She had learned that courage, kindness, and trust could change the world, and with her dragon by her side, there was nothing she could not face. The villagers told stories of the little girl and the pale dragon. They spoke of the day a hated hatchling became a savior, and a girl's courage inspired an entire colony. Generations would remember the tale, not only of battle and survival, but of friendship, love, and the power of believing in what others could not see. Mira looked at the dragon, its red eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. She whispered, "We did it together." The dragon nudged her gently, and Mira laughed softly. The world had changed, and they had changed it with heart and courage. From that day on, the village knew peace. And in the heart of the mountains, a little girl and her pale dragon stood as a reminder that love, courage, and trust could overcome even the greatest fear.